Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Okay, my 7 top crystals for twin flame work, and maybe a few others. Hi YouTube, look at all the shinies, the stones, the crystals, the bracelets on top of my journal because I didn't have another place to put them. I did move some things so you won't see my desk because there's parts of it that are not very attractive, like this spot over here. It was a little bit sticky and most of that came off. That may have been glue, I'm not sure, but I can hardly tell. The finish is starting to come off of this. And there's these over here, but I do the best I can. I wanted to talk about, oh, there's another pencil I can move, but that's okay. Hey, it's a silver one. That's cool. All right. I wanted to talk about some of the stones and crystals and jewelry that I used during my twin flame journey, because I found a lot of things in textbooks and things that I know and have researched and read and experienced did not work. And I found this particularly true with crystals. And there's quite a few factors that I want to talk about in this video because I found that very fascinating, just observing what works and what doesn't. And that's something I don't really hear about. Overall, twin flame journeys are supposed to be kind of unpredictable. I've read a lot of stories, and what I've heard is that there's no magic, no one solution. Even finding coping mechanisms and tools can be tricky. So that's why I found this particularly interesting to experience. This is just my bookmark, and I'm leaving it here because it's pretty. Mom got this for me. So the first one that I used, these are going to be in order from my most used to least used. My top is my selenite. This is a selenite heart. I did get this when I was studying at the Crystal Academy, and I kept it because it was useful. I didn't need a tumbled selenite. I can tell it's real because I don't know if you can see on the end. There's some of it raw that's still there. I don't want to touch it because it can actually give you slivers. I loved this because it's portable, it's very attractive looking, it's easy. I kind of like to use it just as a meditation piece because it's very therapeutic to watch the flash, and that's something I really want to talk about. I felt like the best solutions for me during this journey were not about the crystals or the stones, but doing things that made me happy, that uplifted my spirit. And I think for that reason, that's why crystals tend to be laughed at the most, because a lot of people dismiss the fact that they're pretty and shiny, and there's definitely therapy or things that make you feel better about having something pretty and shiny in your hand, you know? That is the truth. There's a materialistic side to working with crystals, and definitely in witchcraft. So I thought that was interesting. And that led me to some of the other stones. There is so much here. I'm going to have to find them using my hands, and I position them all so that I can find them all with my hands, but also keep some of them safe. This is a aura. It's a rainbow aura. If you don't know, aura is created by basically putting a layer over another crystal. So this is just a quartz. It just functions like a quartz. I do think there is some energy difference to some capacity because everything has energy. But this kind of came with the selenite idea. I realized that I needed rainbows. I needed things that uplifted me, like really, really bad. It was so bad, I felt like I was just craving it with every fiber of my being. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I, I was. I wanted to ingest the color. I wanted to meditate with it. I wanted to wear it. I wanted to eat foods. Like I wanted to eat the rainbow diet, which that gets into some of the layers that I've learned over the years, not just in witchcraft, but also through my education. So I found that really interesting. It was just such an extreme of the knowledge that I already had, but at the same time, too, because auras have been tampered with, same thing with cultured pearls, there's a lot of judgment in who works with them. I like to work with opalite. That is another man-made, and I found there is a bit of color therapy that comes into this. You can call it color therapy, or you can just say the colors make me feel good. And I realized that that's a part of me that was really, I felt shameful about that. I felt really shameful about it because I was trying to justify what I do, what my healing art is. And in my twin flame journey, I realized that that's a big part of the journey. Just recognizing, you know what? I like doing this stuff because it's fun. And there's definitely a lot of talk about aesthetic witchcraft, but I don't really hear anyone talk about the process of realizing that about ourselves and dealing with it, doing the inner work to finally conclude that, you know what, I want to keep this around because it's pretty, it brings me pleasure. The sphere shape is definitely a part of it too. I wanted to stick to a lot of spheres and hearts. There's definitely something pleasurable about that, whether you want to look at that from a science perspective or not. It does not matter. But that's what I needed. And I found a lot of gentler stones too, like quartz called to me, whereas previously I just felt nothing with quartz. And I think the reason for that was that my frequency was being raised. And I found that interesting to experience because I know this, I read this, but I haven't really experienced that yet. So I always used more gentler stones when I was working with clients, with people. I always used things in the quartz family, but I myself needed stronger stones. I'm just going to put these, I think, for here. And this is where it gets hairy because I don't want this to roll. So I'm going to hold on to this here. And I think I'm going to talk about my next stone. So that brings me to rose quartz. I like working with raw rose quartz the best. I love working with raw stones. I definitely need something like a piece of paper when I handle some of these. I don't know how I feel about like chakra pillows and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that's necessary, although that could be fun. You could just use like a silk scarf or a silk bag if you want a surface between you and the crystal so that you can feel the effects of the raw crystal without hurting yourself. I think it's not that I feel the effects of rose quartz stronger when it's raw. It's that the rawness just feels good on my body, period. And that's what I mean about it. It's really coming down to what is going to feel good for me right now, what is soothing. A rose quartz to other people has always felt very fiery, and to me it always felt very cold. And I think because I wasn't connecting with the energy of rose quartz, I was connecting to the stone itself, the physical the physical stone. But also, I know it depends on the stone. I've heard that it kind of all depends on the amount of certain minerals that grow in it, or in this case, the paler or the darker the color, all kinds of factors. And I also want to say here that Hillary from Positive Energy with Crystals has really inspired this video in particular. So I really want to thank Hillary because that was so cool. I felt that woke up this part of me, and that was very much needed. I worked with rose quartz and actually felt the fiery energy that people talk about. And I used the same stones. I didn't use different ones. And that's why I felt like I wasn't quite connecting to the stone before. And sometimes it's not just you that needs to be in the right place. Sometimes as we grow, just as our guides do, we tend to gravitate towards certain crystals. We can have a bad reaction to anything, right? And that's definitely been true for me on my crystal journey, and especially now. A lot of stones I did not work with suddenly started to feel good, and I wanted to work with them. I suddenly thought about them like crazy and craved them. So that was a big revelation. I had this moment where I felt a little bit crazy because I thought, well, why didn't I want to work with these stones before? You know, it's like, what? Okay, here we go. Oh, this worked well. I think that's a blind thing, by the way, like just liking shapes. These rose quartz mushrooms, these came in a package of crystals that I bought. These were a freebie, and there's 4 of them. And the funny thing is, I'm not a mushroom fan, mainly because for obvious reasons. You know, those big geodes too, like let's be real. Sometimes they make me laugh when people walk and go, oh, they're so beautiful. And I'm like, they look like a giant dick. Anyway, yes, uncensored. Sorry, not sorry. I held these in my hand. I realized there's actually a proper way to hold them. If you hold them just right, you can stimulate the points in your fingertips. I do know some of the acupressure points, not all of them. I also know that the heart chakra is also in our hands, and I could feel that so strongly with these. And the interesting thing is, whoops, that's what I mean about them rolling. That one should be okay. It's hard enough. This one, you would think that I would have a bigger reaction to this one, or that I would feel more gravitated to this one, but I actually ended up feeling more gravitated to these. So it definitely wasn't the polished, unpolished thing. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. Let me see if I can find where no, it might have went on the floor. Did it go on the floor? Oh, it went over here. Ha ha. It's like, no, I want to be with the other crystals. Why did you move me? Okay. Wait. Come on. It's not willing to stay there. Okay. I'll have to keep holding it again. I'll remember my hand is here. I also had, oh, I can put more over there. I also had these, which are my twin flame hearts. Now, these were interesting because my cousin gave me these, okay? Wait, I'm not sure. Yeah, you are seeing this. Okay, good. Sorry, didn't mean to make you dizzy or move too quickly. These my cousin got me, and she got them for me to find someone for me to be with. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. Twin flames don't exist. Well, they say never because look what happened. And those didn't have too big of a part in this, but I found holding one in each hand really did help me physically with meditations on balance in my journey. So that's definitely an exercise that you can do. I've worked with opposite stones, one in each hand as well, but I find even just two of the same stone, they're all slightly different, but in general, like two of the same also works. And then the biggest one, blue tiger's eye. This one was a bit on the rarer side to find, so I was very lucky. And that's the other thing that astonished me. I had been looking for spiritual supplies and tools before, and it was so hard to find anything that I really needed. Everything was too expensive, and everything just came to me. That was amazing. So I didn't get too much, but like all of these I had mostly already. But a lot of these I needed. And there was definitely a process of justifying my spiritual needs. That was a biggie for me. So the blue tiger's eye, it's very calming. I found it's excellent with anxiety. I find it helps me detach from my emotions, which is something I really, really needed. And I don't think it's the color, because there's definitely a lot of dark blue stones or navy blue stones, and there's nothing that does it like tiger's eye. Like, I can hold many blue tiger's eye stones in my hand, many blue stones in my hand, and the blue tiger's eye, tongue-tied. Okay, I can hold all of them in my hand and I will gravitate towards the blue tiger's eyes with my eyes closed. Okay, that is how I learned my crystals. I would literally hold them and not know which ones I chose and keep my eyes shut and just feel the energy. And then I would try and guess which one I held in my hand. And that was how I really connected with them. Anyway, when we awaken Kundalini energy, and I've been told that there are actually other ways that you can awaken similar energies. So I wouldn't know about that, but I'm going to say Kundalini because that was what happened to me. When you awake Kundalini energy, sometimes you get a little horny. Okay? I'm just going to be very blunt about it. It's supposed to be an effect of the imbalance that you have. And there's definitely a way that we can maintain and look after our Kundalini energy. Now, when I started out in the New Age community. And I'm sorry, I'm not speaking clearly, but I'm trying. I got thrown all kinds of stuff about Kundalini yoga and Kundalini energy, and my ass didn't pay attention. I went, I don't need to know that stuff. When is that ever going to be useful? So this was a bit humbling for me. I did hallucinate because I wasn't taking care of myself well enough, and I wasn't really able to. So that was interesting. I found breathing exercises to be the best. And I had extreme reactions, headaches, health issues that went along with that. And I went to the doctors, and the doctors went, I'm not sure, we're not seeing anything that's wrong with you. So I did take care of myself physically as best that I could, but I couldn't eat the recommended Kundalini diet. I do know some yoga, but I do not know Kundalini yoga, and I don't feel called to it. So if you don't feel called to it, you can definitely breathe. I will tell you that from experience now. Every journey is different. You may have to fool around with stuff until you find what works for you. I did not have a guide. I did not have anyone to go to for any of this. Blue tiger's eye. That changed everything. That really helped me calm down so that I didn't react too much to the horniness. I know I'm laughing. I'm totally mature about it, but I can't believe I'm talking about this on YouTube. But it is a thing. It made me question, what was wrong with me. I went through this process of going, I don't get turned on like this? What's happening? And just as a yeah, by the way, without giving anything away, I also like my twin flame and I are very much friends. And it would never happen. Like, I would not do that, you know? So I was going, what is this crap? And I needed this so bad. Once I was able to just take away some of those symptoms, I was able to more easily calm myself down. So it doesn't, you know, obviously crystals don't totally mask the symptoms completely. They don't like cure them or take anything away, but they just aid you in trying to deal with whatever you're going through. And that's the same with this. It just aided me enough that I could manage it. And I did learn some of those breathing exercises. I did try some stuff. I really like a lot of this stuff on Kundalini energy straight from Buddhist traditions. I will say that. I tried reading some of the New Age stuff and it did not work for me. And maybe it's different for some of you, but I wanted to point that out. All right. The other crystal that I used, this one was also a purchase. This you've seen before. This is my Charoite. It's purple. And it's very different than amethyst, even though they're both purple. And oh my gosh, I've wanted this my whole crystal journey, like so bad. Because again, there's nothing like Charoite. I'm not going to say too much about this, but I found, especially with the size of these beads, it gave me the blast that I needed to calm myself down, to calm my anxiety down, to go into a total surrender state, which is what I needed to do. And I was having a hard time because I had a lot of fears, and I definitely still needed to heal from some things and cleanse myself, and I just could not do any of that. So I did need my tools very badly. At the same time, it is similar to stones in the quartz family because it is gentle. It's just kind of sort of in between. It's gentle, but it also does pack a punch, which is really interesting. Some crystals I feel tingling in my hands. That's probably the electromagnetic energy. And this one, that's definitely true. So this one helped out a lot. This one helps me with so many other things. So it's going to be used beyond my twin flame journey. Like, this is something that I probably need for self-care. Anyway, it calms down the chakras that I needed to, the areas of my body, however you want to approach that. And by the way, just as a side note, I found with chakra cleansing, the best remedy isn't just balancing those areas, but the spaces between. So I did try the 12 chakra methods, or the 12 chakra system as well. Even that, it's always the spaces in between. And maybe that's where I was storing some of those emotions. Your body does store things. So that's probably not very much on this one, but I would highly recommend this one if you don't feel called to work with something in the quartz family or amethyst. And then we get to this one, which is another one that you've seen. This one has a bit of, I think this one has a bit of pink dumbrite in it. It definitely has a fossil in there. This one, excuse me for that, is carnelian. And this one is for receiving. That was something I needed to work on in my journey, was receiving. And I've never gravitated toward carnelian before, and I finally found a piece that I really connected with. And carnelian, of course, is within the quartz family, so it's the same way. I was like, what? I'm connecting to carnelian now? And it could be the fossil in there. I don't know quite why, but hey, whatever works, right? And this is a big fat piece too. So not much to say about that, but I would recommend that. Little quick note in here because I just totally forgot about this. Um, Working with Rainbow Aura and Angel Aura. Oh, sure, now I can't find them. Oh well. Working with those two, and Blue Celestite and Angel Light, which I do not have. Okay, we've almost got them. By the time I'm done talking about this, I'll probably have them all. And even Amethyst too. Amethyst was another one I was playing with because, like Carolite, I was just definitely craving that particular stone. And I just wanted to have it on hand. Oh, I might have put it in here. Okay, yay, we have everything. Okay, so the auras. I find working with those and the Angelite and the Celestite does not help at all with angel energy. I, however, did have some encounters with energy that felt very angelic or celestial. I did get back in touch with some of my old guides and parts of myself that used to work with angels. But I don't think it had anything to do with the stone. But I wanted to add that in there because I didn't think I would ever even entertain any of those thoughts on my journey. And that's definitely something that really I want to fill in there because all of this is part of it, you know. I also always wondered whether the stones really work, whether they really help you work with angels. Obviously, a lot of people use sacred geometry, and there's sacred geometry in the way some of these things are formed. But no, it did not work whatsoever. But that could also be what I was saying about maybe it just made me feel good. Maybe when people talk about working with angels, they do it because it feels good. I know that when, like, say, a pandemic happens, I know sometimes people can feel lost, scared, and people start praying. I think it's very appealing to work with a deity or work with spirits that will help you no matter what. We want something from the outside world to fix it. That's definitely true. Like it or not, it just is. And I was at that point too. And I don't think anybody really ever talks about that. It, you know, that's the real part that sometimes is not necessarily spiritual so much as it is just being human. I wanted to ground, but I could not ground for the life of me. And I think because I hadn't managed my emotions, it took so much time for me to figure out what to do. So I tried both tourmaline and black, not black amethyst, black moonstone. Now, I'm going to talk about both of these, but I'm going to start with the tourmaline. This I got because it's just nice to have. It is protective, and especially when I'm doing something magical or a ritual, I like to have at least one piece. I have 4 of these though that I put around me, or sometimes I put rocks and crystals in a circle and I make a little, fairy circle. Not for creating a fairy ring, but just simply because it's energetically pleasing and it's awesome. I've even meditated in a spiral of hearts. That's definitely a thing that I found very therapeutic. And I got rid of a lot of my bigger stuff because I just had too much. And in the beginning, that was very cleansing and healing, and I didn't need that anymore. But that meant I didn't have any. So I got my tourmaline out, and because a lot of the crystals in the quartz family are very gentle, I really thought that that wouldn't work. And to some point it didn't, because it didn't help me with the emotional aspect of working through my inner work. It just really, it did protect me to some point though, but it didn't do what I needed it to do, which is why I usually use black kyanite. Black kyanite didn't even work, okay? So this one was a no. It kind of sort of worked, kind of didn't. I got out this one. This one I bought at a gem show, and I actually used this when working with a guide that I used to work with. So this was our crystal, and this belonged to me and my guide. And luckily that relationship is no longer, and I cleansed this and I started working with it, and immediately I was able to ground. And what I think is the reason is because I think this is good for grounding emotions. It's supposed to be good for trauma, but it's never worked for me with trauma before. Maybe because I haven't had a trauma this huge or worked with it while I was having the trauma. That's definitely a factor. I'm not sure. But that's what made me conclude that maybe it's not so much that it's good for trauma or working through trauma, but that very specifically it could be good for grounding emotions. That was an incredible experience and very insightful for me. I would love to hear everyone else's experience with Black Moonstone as well. And definitely Hillary at Positive Energy with Crystals, if you're watching this and you have experience with Black Moonstone, I would love to hear it in the comments. And if you've done a video on Black Moonstone, I would love to watch it. But I have had probably the most success with this crystal. So after the Tiger's Eye and the Carnelian, this one. Just, oh my God, this one saved my life. And I was kind of pissed because I didn't grab this until the very end. And if I had done that in the beginning, I may have been better off. But I do think that the journey was a process, and I needed to go through that process, and it took, I think, far too long, but you know, everything has its time. That is the lesson that I'm learning, and patience has always been difficult for me. So because I know that, I kind of went, okay, fine. I give up. I surrender. I know. I'm going to learn now. I promise. And I don't know who I was talking to, you know, the invisible deity. I don't know. Maybe my higher self. And that leaves this bunch. And I want to talk about this one very specifically. This is aquamarine. This is my mother's stone. I actually got this heart from my mom, but she didn't want it, so I took it. Aquamarine is good for heart and mind balance. And I thought this in particular, without really like going into why and how, would be really good for balancing my energy with my twins' energy and helping with inner union, specifically for my journey. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for anybody, but I felt like this was very specific to my issue. And the interesting thing is, it did not work at all. Zilch. It felt good, but it did not do what I needed it to do. There is a point where you do have to connect to the crystal, the plant, the spirit of, the energy of the thing, the object, the guide, because you need to have a relationship with it. And if you don't, it's just not going to work. I don't have a relationship with aquamarine. I've never had a desire to work with aquamarine whatsoever. But I thought I would try it just to see what would happen. And what do we got left? This one. This is rainbow fluorite, which again, a lot of people work with different colors of fluorite. It's very popular. It's not natural. And yet a lot of people like it. And I never understood that. I admit I kind of made fun of people. But you know how that goes. You make fun of people and then it happens to you. Well, this is another one that saved my life. A big, big recommendation. This was given to me by my neighbor. There's a tiny crack in it, probably barely noticeable. I try not to drop these things, but sometimes we do, you know, and the cats knock them over, of course. My neighbor gave this to me, and she got this from Yosemite. This was bought. It wasn't like from the, well, it's from the earth, but it wasn't mined from the earth at all whatsoever. But I liked it. The energy felt absolutely wonderful. And that's another thing that I want to talk about. Geographical location. How is the energy in your environment as well? Those things all can affect the stone. This helped me with nightmares, this rainbow fluorite. I was having so many nightmares, and it actually helped my hallucinations. And I don't necessarily enjoy looking at this. So this was definitely an energy thing. Because I know where this came from, and there are certain locations where people talk about ley lines and portals and all kinds of things. Sometimes certain places tend to be very high spiritual energy. That could be it. This did come from a place that is full of nature, and nature does affect the overall environment. It does affect us. So that could be the reason why. I don't know. But this just, oh my gosh, this worked really, really well. So I wouldn't say like, yeah, go get a rainbow fluorite, because that's a big factor, where this came from. But I will say this is likely to work. And I have had people talk about how good it works when you have nightmares. But I also feel like everybody says rainbow fluorite does everything. They treat it a lot like quartz, where it's like, yeah, like when in doubt, just grab any color fluorite. It'll do what you need it to do and cure all diseases. And I feel like that gets carried away. So that was interesting to experience. I really feel like with this stone, because I've held different fluorites before, and I really feel like with this one, it just had to do with where it came from. I could be wrong, maybe. It could be the intent. This one could have had someone put Reiki in it too. That's another factor, because it is a wand, so you can direct energy with it. But yeah, so think of that what you will. Let's see, what do I have left? This is just another amethyst. This one I find a little more useful. This is part of my second set, and I use this one for chakra balancing. And again, it's because of the type of amethyst it is. But that didn't work for me whatsoever. This is a rose quartz. I don't know why I didn't take that one out before. Just another example of a raw one. I just brought them all out. No big deal. And then this is the other aquamarine that I have. This one I use for body work as opposed to holding that one. And we get to the turquoise. Finally. Da 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 da! This one is a nugget. And I've had this since I was a little girl. This was my first official crystal friend or crystal guide. I would not let this go as a child. I found it very soothing because it feels a lot like Play-Doh. It is used to balance the throat chakra, which is something that I needed. I had really bad throat symptoms. Like my throat was in so much pain. You have no fucking clue. I used this for anxiety, which is, again, not something that turquoise is used for. I just found this very calming. And everybody that has touched this particular stone or this nugget has felt the same way. It doesn't matter who they were. I mean, I've even had like really big tough guys, they kind of laughed at it and they asked me, I'm kind of curious, can I hold it? Like, I want to see if all this crystal weird stuff works. And like 2 minutes later, they were holding this and they were just kind of like, oh my God, like I cannot stop playing with this. It was really funny. So I think this has to do with this stone in particular. And maybe this wasn't bought, and that makes a difference as well. Like where it came from in the earth. Also with this one, it's used to help people speak up and with creativity. I find moving this around, because it calms me, it does tend to help me work out emotional issues for whatever reason. I tend to feel more open to problem solving. I feel like it stimulates my mind, which is really weird because, again, it's not what it's supposed to be for, you know? There's a lot of howlite that is dyed and looks like turquoise, but is not. This is definitely not one of those stones. This is definitely turquoise, for sure. So it could be that I encountered a lot of turquoise that is actually dyed howlite. That is a big factor. But yeah, if anybody knows why, like if there's clay in this, or maybe something that is actually in natural clay that is also in this stone or grows with it, I would love to know that, because that is so intriguing, and it intrigues me even now. So this is a must-have. I know a lot of people on their twin flame journeys experience throat symptoms, and I think if you have a stone like this, just go back to your best friend, the first stone you had, and that goes for anything, plant allies or, plant spirits, certain colors. I find that working with something like that can really help you work with your childhood self as well. So, I will leave this here. I hope that you enjoyed this very, very, very long rambly video. But I tried not to make it rambly. I wanted it to be interesting and fun. I wanted to open up the discussion because a lot of us have twin flames now and are going on our own journeys. A lot of us have reached a point where we are getting back to ourselves, and we are we're not out of the woods, but we're getting there. And I know I'm finally at the point where I can talk about this, and I am still in separation with my twin flame. And that part was definitely a journey of I was feeling called to talk about it, but I didn't want to share anything personal about my twin flame. I love them so much, and I would never do that. And I also didn't know whether they would freak out. Without sharing, my twin is not spiritual. So having only just met them really gotten to know them, I was very nervous about, what if they think that I'm a joke? If I start talking about this, are they going to think that I'm like some crazy stalker? That was really hard on me, and that was why it took me so long to get to this point. Let me know if I'm moving my hands too much, but I want to be real. I don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to slowly move my hand and talk about this crystal and talk about it in a whisper to help you relax. I want to be real in this video because this is a video about my journey. This is a real raw video about working with crystals and why sometimes they don't work, even though the book says they will. Why, quote unquote, no amount of magic will help you on your twin flame journey. And that was probably the most interesting lesson of all, by the way, for me. Because I always turn to magic for healing, and I couldn't do that this time. I see what the universe did, and I laugh at it. And it really helped me develop my practice in a whole new way and become a little less serious about it and make peace with those parts of me that just love to look at pretty, beautiful shiny things. And that's where I'm going to stop this video. And I want to thank you if you're still watching this at this point. And for those of you that have viewed my videos, thank you very much. And for all of you that have been really patient with me, I plan on getting to some tags soon, but I wanted to do this video first because I really felt inspired to do it. Let me know anything you want, anything really. Experiences that you've had about your twin flame journey that you're willing to share. You don't have to if you don't want to, but anything you want in the comments. I would love to hear from all of you. I miss you, and I will see you next time.